Once more, we are on exclusive with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International, and tonight we'll be talking about Egyptian-Indian relations and new dimensions. Once more, we are together, and this time we're exploring the land of cultures, the land of diversity, festivals, and even more. Tonight, we're having all the honor and pleasure to host His Excellency Ambassador Ajit Gupte, Ambassador of India to Egypt, to explore India and explore the timeless land of dynamic change and huge diversity, the land of glorious history and prosperity that shines all over India through the palaces, the temples, many other monuments that are still surviving till today, eagerly telling us stories to the visitors from the different parts and our audience from the different parts of the world. Together we are enjoying the beauty of India, starting from the capital, New Delhi, to the exotic Himalayan towns, to the historical wonders, to the gorgeous countless temples, to the magnificent sights of the fascinating state of India. Our distinguished guest for tonight is His Excellency Ambassador Ajit Gupte, Ambassador of India to Egypt. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for coming.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to meet Your Excellency, and always on exclusive, exploring together our distinctive relations between Egypt and India, and also exploring the beauty and diversity of India. Well, His Excellency is going to stand up in a place where the President is meeting with the past. He'll tell us more about modern India, about its dynamism, the diplomatic and economic advances with Egypt, bridging time and space, and also the difference surrounding and surmounting all sorts of barriers, allowing us to behold the most impressive culture and evidence of creativity in India. Well, Your Excellency, we've been taking great strides in our diplomacy, in our diplomatic relations between Egypt and India, and cooperation on the different levels. You're exerting utmost effort, and the sky is always the limit. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I came here in March of last year, and that was the time when the pandemic was still on, so we had to continue taking a lot of precautions. But I am happy to convey that in the last year and a few months, we have made a lot of progress. We've had more than 20 Indian delegations which have visited Egypt. We have about 12 trade and business delegations. In fact, there is a very large one from the pharmaceutical companies which is taking part in Africa, a health event today.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to convey that the bilateral trade between both our countries has expanded by 75% in the last year. It has reached the highest ever level of $7.26 billion. And Egypt's exports to India have almost doubled. They have increased by 86% last year. And India, in fact, is the third largest export destination for Egypt. I don't think many Egyptians know that. Our exports have also grown. Our exports have grown about 65% last year. But the foreign trade is more or less matched. Yeah. So there is not much of a gap.
Yes, definitely the bilateral relations between Egypt and India is based on multifold dimensions, as His Excellency has mentioned. And right after President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's visit to India, that was back in September 2016, there was a joint statement that was issued mainly outlining the three pillars of political security, cooperation, economic engagement, and scientific collaboration, as well as cultural and people-to-people relations with India. This as a basis for a sense of partnership, Mr. Ambassador, that is growing day after day. So tell us more about the future of this sense of partnership.
Right. So I just mentioned about how our economic relations, the trade has expanded very vigorously last year, and I expect that to continue. In addition, the investments from the Indian companies in Egypt have been steady. About 50 Indian companies have invested $3.2 billion in Egypt, and they are actually not in hotels or, but they are mainly set up industries, manufacturing. And the Indian companies are making niche products, chemicals, petrochemicals, garments, etc. And this is earning a lot of export revenue for Egypt.
Yeah.
They are also employing about 40,000 Egyptians through direct employment. And I'm sure about 10 times that number is getting indirect employment. But on the security side, since you mentioned that this was one of the pillars, over the last year we've had, I'm beginning to lose count, but almost a dozen Indian delegations which have come. And just last month I was in Alexandria because 3 Indian training ships had come.
Yeah.
And then there was a sailing ship which had come. And last year, for the first time ever in November, we had joint exercises between the fighter aircrafts of both our air forces. And our chief of air staff also visited. So to sum up, I would say that over the last year and a half, we have put a very strong foundation by expanding our trade, our investment, our defense cooperation is growing. And I think the prospects are very bright. We are hoping to have some ministerial visits in the latter part of this year.
Upcoming ministerial visits. That's great, because it's very important to follow up on this dynamic mechanism and to see eye to eye on the follow-up of our partnership as well. Well, Ambassador, also talking in-depth studies on the transfer of the modern technology, industrial technologies from India to Egypt. This is also a very important priority, talking technology. As you know, Ambassador, that Egypt is now going smart. We don't have only the smart village, but we are thinking smart as well. A green economy and digitize Egypt. So technology is also a very important pillar now.
That's right. So you see, what I have found fascinating is that most of the Indian companies, they are producing for the global market.
Yeah.
They are using Egypt as a base, and they are making products which are then being exported to Europe, North America. And also some of it is for consumption in Egypt. Now you mentioned the green economy. So India has, emerged almost as a leader in renewables, but our companies are contributing to Egypt. Some of our Indian companies have set up 300 megawatts of solar power projects in Aswan, and they are about to start on another 200 megawatts of solar. We also have a lot of expertise in wind energy, which we would be prepared to start also. What we have also done is, in niche areas, the Indian IT companies are providing services for your banks, for your Central Bank of Egypt. We have also set up some of the first large-scale data centers. So India is prepared to transfer technology, and that is why the Indian investments, I think, are very valuable.
Yes, very important. Egyptian-Indian relations have greatly developed during the era of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the political, at the economic, as well as the cultural levels as well. We find in the cultural front, Egypt and India are both definitely promoting this sense also of cultural cooperation. We do have a very reputed cultural exchange program as well, Ambassador. It's very important. India with its cultural diversity and richness, and Egypt with its history and culture and civilization.
I find that there is a lot in common between our cultures. Our people are very warm, friendly. We attach a lot of importance to personal relations. We respect our elders. We like our families. We are very fond of our families. So these are the common factor, binding forces between the Indians and Egyptians. And what I find very, very interesting is that almost everybody in Egypt, whether they are young or old, or professionals or businessmen, they are enthralled by Indian culture. They see Bollywood films. They like Indian culture. They like the music and dance. And I would urge more Egyptians to travel to India and explore for themselves the great diversity of India.
Yes, it is, and it is a very actually inspiring story, the story of having this sense of this bond and culture between both countries. There is also another dimension that binds us, which is yoga. yoga is binding both cultures, the Egyptian and the Indian culture. We do have also beautiful Indian nights on the Nile, and lots and lots in store between Egypt and India. We're enjoying in special celebration and honor of my guest of honor tonight, His Excellency Ambassador of India, Ambassador Ajit Gupte. Short break, and we'll be back to discuss more about yoga, about culture, and about definitely Bollywood. We can't wait to see more on the show concerning Bollywood superstars and Bollywood movies.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल दलति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Yes, India is a dream destination for many yogas. Yoga is indeed an integral part of the Indian culture. We'll come to yoga, but first let's have a flashback on a very important visit. We remembered last Ramadan, President Sisi and Sultan of Indian Bohra community had inaugurated Al Hussein Mosque after renovation. This was really very significant, a very significant visit that was full of many blessings, and definitely the inauguration had promoted the historic relations that bind both Egypt and India, and Egypt and the Bohra community. Remember, Ambassador, that was a very important and a historic visit.
Yes, so this is, there are many facets and aspects to our relationship, and this is a very interesting commonality. So the Indian Bohra community settled in Egypt in the 1970s, but in the 11th century, some of the followers of Imam Ahmad al-Mustali Billah al-Fatimi, they sent emissaries to India, and particularly to the western coast, and converted some members. And the Bohra community came to Egypt in the 1970s, and they are very successful in business. So they have been interested in renovating some of the major monuments here. And particularly this effort to renovate and restore the shrine of Al-Bayt is very, very important, because it is the final resting place of the grandson of the Prophet.
Yes, peace and prayers be upon him, yes. A very important visit, and full of spirituality and full of blessings. We can see how diversified this bond between Egypt and India is, and we find many Egyptians would love to explore more about India, visit India, which is a dream destination. And we were talking about yoga, and yoga indeed is an integral part actually of the Indian culture. For Indians to be part of true India, they have to learn yoga for the betterment of their body. It's also very important that it has a positive effect on our souls. So in that regard, yoga is always a way to learn and to understand. If you want to understand spiritual India, Ambassador, through yoga, why is it associated India with yoga in the first place?
Well, actually, yoga originated in India about 5,000 years ago. And it was mentioned in our ancient scriptures, the Vedas. But it was Maharishi Patanjali who described yoga in detail in a book called the Yoga Sutras. In recent years, I must say that while yoga was being done, the government of India did not very actively promote it until Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. And he himself is a very keen practitioner of yoga and also pranayam, that is the breathing exercises.
Yes.
So after coming to power, he proposed to the United Nations that the International Day of Yoga be celebrated and observed. And the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution with an overwhelming majority, and Egypt was also one of the countries which very strongly recommended. And since then, the International Day of Yoga is being celebrated with increasing fervor and enthusiasm on the 21st of June. The Indian embassies and missions all across the world have been organizing events, and that has helped to create more and more awareness. But also what has happened is that in India, a lot more people have started doing yoga.
Yeah.
So we actually, hundreds of millions of Indians have started doing yoga in the last 7 to 8 years. So yoga was beginning to, go and fade into the background, but it has really come back. And yoga has become so popular all over the world. I myself have seen in several of my assignments that when I was there, yoga was barely known, but now millions of people are doing it. And I'm very glad to see that yoga is becoming very popular in Egypt. My advice to the people in Egypt is very simple. Yoga is a very simple way of staying fit. It does not require very complex postures. You can start at any age. It requires no equipment. All you need is a mat, or you can even do it on the grass. And you can start in an easy way. You don't have to do a very complex. And if you really want to do yoga and learn it, please go to India. We now have direct flights which have restarted. Egypt Air is flying 4 times a week between Cairo and Mumbai, and the airfare is also not very much. So please do go to India, discover it, and if you wish to learn yoga, become a teacher and start a school. That is how yoga has spread all over the world.
Yes, definitely yoga is considered to be a very powerful tool that binds both cultures, Egyptian and Indian culture. We're celebrating with His Excellency Yoga International Day, and how yoga has also been celebrated and known in Egypt, as His Excellency has outlined, that it originated actually from India. So India inspired the world, disseminating the culture of yoga to the world. Well, I thank very much His Excellency Ambassador Ajit Gupte, Ambassador of India to Egypt, and we'll talk to him in the coming episode more about Bollywood and more about the field of tourism, the field of culture, and the people-to-people relations between Egypt and India. Thank you so much, Ambassador. We're waiting for and looking forward to part 2 of this important interview to know more about the dissemination of the yoga culture, and as well as celebrating also the people-to-people relations. Thank you, Ambassador. And thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. We'll be seeing you next week. Until then.